Well, it's not. So now that it's the police's duty to reach out to Leicestershire Police and ask for the master copy of the hard drive and check to see what I am saying is true. But of course, we know that the Leicestershire Police Force deleted that hard drive to hide the truth. So I expect now Nottinghamshire Police Force should be having Leicestershire Police Force investigated for corruption.
No, I mean, my faith in the police force is diminished massively over, I don't know, the last 10 years. I mean, even going back to basic things like, I had 3 stolen bicycles, 1 attached to my gate, 2 thrown in my yard, and I found them up and said, I've got 2 bikes in my yard. I've picked it up on the camera. One of them is a known shoplifter in the area, and I said, can you go and get them, because they're not mine. And I said, there's 1 bolted on the gate, like with a padlock. They said, well, we can't touch the one on the gate for sure, because that could be to someone. I said, but that person has put 3 bikes onto my property. So 1 on the front of it, on the gate, like on the metal railings, and then 2 in my yard. So we know they're all linked together. Why would they throw them into my house? And I'm saying they don't have permission to do that anyway. Anyway, so what I did, I put the 2 bikes inside my house, and later on in the evening, the one that was on the gate got taken, and I can see them on the camera. And I know this is minor, but this is just how bad policing is. Yeah, and I could see them looking into my yard for those 2 bikes, but obviously they couldn't. They weren't there because I put them inside my house. So I called the police again in the morning. I said, one of the bikes have been taken. Here's, I've got the camera evidence, and I've got the 2 bikes. And they said, yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it. And I said, you what? I said, but they've got to be stolen bicycles. And they said, yeah, but we're busy doing blah, 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 whatever. And I could walk down to the police station. So I walked these 2 bikes down to the police station. They refused to take them. Absolutely shocking. And then when I'm there at the gate, some guy is on, because there's a buzzer system. They didn't have a counter there. All right, comes up and says he wants to kill himself. I kid you not. So I phoned him back up again, and I said, "There's a guy here that wants to kill himself, and I think you should talk to him." So they come outside. I'm not joking. He's obviously known to them, right? I said, they gave him a right berating, like talked down to him like a piece of shit, right? And they said, but it's nothing to do with us. It's a hospital matter. I said, okay, fine. How's he going to get to the hospital?
Don't say on a bike.
Yeah, I've got a bike. And so they took him in the end, and they actually took the 2 bikes. But how difficult was that process?
Oh, Brad,
they didn't even ask me for the camera evidence of who did it, and he's a known criminal.
Brad, yeah, and let me just say something ironic now to that, because as I'm listening to you, I'm like not in shock. I'm just amazed that these things happen. Let me tell you, through a separate investigation last week, I was with a young police officer in Newark, and I told him this story. Now, get this one. In April 2023, whilst I was away on the Saturday morning visiting Gillian in jail, Laura rang me that lunchtime to say, Dad, never speak to Reese again. This was her boyfriend at the time, ex-boyfriend now. Anyway, in November 2022, whilst I was in jail, this young man's one of those fellas that when he's had alcohol is aggressive and is violent. He threw a slab through Laura's patio French doors, and she had to call the police this night, and they arrested him. Now, fast forward to April 2023, Laura says, and she told me this story, what had happened. So here it is. He obviously knew I was visiting Gillian. And so he came down here, being abusive, wanted to go in my garage to steal my tools. And so Laura rang the police. Now, I kid you not, 4 police officers turned up. 1 stood at Laura's back door, and 3 of them, when he pulled out a key from my garage with my old XK150 in there, Jaguar XK150. Laura's disabled. She has been since the age of 7. And she's had multiple operations on her hands and feet. She can hardly walk. But her ex-boyfriend's pulled a key out for my garage. The police have then allowed him to open my garage. And they carried with him, 3 police officers, £8,000 worth of my tools. Now, I contacted Newark Police Station and demanded an investigation. And I spoke to a sergeant. I think his name was Barnesby. It was something like that. And he said this to me: Ian, please keep your CCTV safe. Well, what I didn't tell him is at that time, my CCTV wasn't working. Anyway, he claimed this. He claimed that all 4 police officers had their body cams turned off. And Nottinghamshire Police Force, I complained to them and they've just told me to fuck off. They're not going to investigate. How shocking is that? I went to a civil court and I've won £8,000 against her ex-boyfriend. But this is the police for you, isn't it? In your case there, they won't pick up these bikes. But in my case, they've emptied my garage out of £8,000 worth of tools. And professional standards can simply just batter you away. I went back to them with the same allegation, the same claim a couple of weeks back. And the person from professional standards said, we've already dealt with this. We've already told you, in essence, to fuck off.
Yeah. Someone else, again, that sticks out in my mind. Like you, Ian, I'm not anti-police, but I'm very much anti the organisation and the corruption within it. I mean, I was just talking to someone the other day about the issue at the Bell Hotel in Essex, where the police actually put protesters in a van who were anti the local residents and took them to go do an anti-protest against the residents who were complaining about the migration or immigrants, illegal immigrants, I should say, that are in that area. And how extraordinary is that? Then the chief of police denies it, then has to open up and confess they did it.
Well, are you so this is true then, Brad? They've actually confessed in the end that they did this?
They confessed, yeah.
No way.
They owned up to it, yeah.
No way. Yes, that is unbelievable. But as you said earlier, where you lost faith in them, and you've just said now you still support them. Of course, we always support our police, don't we? We always will do. We need the police. We just need better training.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's something else. There's an incident I remember a few years back that I wasn't necessarily involved in it, but I witnessed something that was going on. And I reported it to the police. Yeah, I said, "Come here now," and they said, "We can't." I said, "But I can see criminality going on right in front of me, with a drug deal." I said, "It's obvious what's going on." This guy was in a Rolls Royce, whatever the biggest car it is. I don't know what they're called. And I'm standing there watching them. And I couldn't record them because I was scared, because they're really big people and that sort of stuff. But I witnessed a drug deal. And I remember the part of the partial number plate and that sort of thing. And I told them where it happened. And I'm thinking, you've got citizens reporting stuff like you have a burglary. That goes on. All you get is a crime reference number now. Yeah. Your car gets stolen, crime reference number.
Yeah, change is urgently needed. Just to finish off, another story. I was in a meeting with a company who build large chicken sheds. You see them going up now all around the country because we're short of chicken. Clark's, actually. And the owner of that company rang the police where he had a break-in in Grantham. I think it was on something Heath or wherever it was. And the police turned up. And there was a small fence, and he says, "Come down here." They're down here, and the police officer said, "I can't climb over that fence. It won't. It's not allowed anymore."
Mm. Yeah, there was that story about the kids in the lake, isn't there, who were drowning, and the police were not allowed to go in. But then a police officer or a fire officer eventually went in, and he got disciplined. to save them. Shocking, isn't it?
Change is needed.
I don't know what you do. I don't know what you do. I mean,
I don't know what our fake police officer is thinking to all of this, because, you know, he must be very upset, you know, a force that he left when he proudly served, and how it's gone downhill over the decades.
There's actually an advert on the local news, and basically the fire officer, he says, you know, there's a picture of a lake behind him, you know, and obviously trying to rescue a set up rescue behind the practicing rescuing, and he actually admits, the first thing he said was, if you see somebody in a lake drowning, do not attempt to save them. And I thought, well, that's great, that is, you know. And even when I hear tales, like you say, you know, of officers standing on a riverbank watching somebody drown because they can't go in to save them, in my day, that was unheard of. If you stood on a riverbank watching somebody drown, they would have bloody thrown you in. You know, that was your job, basically. You're there to protect people's lives, you know. So that's why they taught you how to swim. That's why they insisted that you did life saving. Not so you stand on a riverbank watching somebody drown. That was ridiculous.
Yeah.
You had to go in. Jacket
Yeah.
off, boots off, trousers off, get in.
Of course, Phil. And without being disrespectful, this is exactly what Lance did on the night of those two men who were drowning, weren't it? You know, he stripped down to his thermals and went in there. Why didn't the others? Perhaps they're thinking they'll follow protocol these days. They couldn't go in the tank to try to save poor Gavin and Nathan, but Lance did.
Yeah. I suppose, you know, if you're a police officer, you know, in those days you're under scrutiny. You know, people were watching. They were always watching you. You know, so you couldn't just stand there and do nothing. That would be unheard of.
Yeah.
And
sure.
what would you say to your colleagues when you got back to the nick? You know.
Yeah.
Or just stood and watched them drown? I don't think so.
No, totally agree, Phil. Totally agree.
But the trouble is, society has moved to a position where we starve the police for funding. I mean, at one time, if somebody would have attached a stolen bike to your gate and thrown two bikes into your yard, the local beat officer would probably have one or two names that he would know about already. He would suspect names.
Exactly.
Because he would know everybody in his beat.
Yes.
All the players, you know, all the smart lads, all the, you know, this and you know where to go and look. Whereas nowadays you don't get that because they're never going to have a bloody car. You know, they're always, because there's not enough of them.
See,
you know what I mean?
I just sorry, because we can give examples after examples here. Right, this is another one. Yeah, right, at the local cricket ground. Yeah, I used to play bowls there, with a couple of friends of mine. Yeah, and every morning you will see people that will be walking to a drug den. Yeah, we knew it's a drug den because they told us. They were happy to talk about it. So basically, they would go shoplifting in the morning, walk across this large field, and then go and buy their drugs, and then come back again. And just repeat the routine. One day, yeah, I kid you not, right? So this is easy identifiable policing, yeah, where basically, you know, you've got someone earning lots of money from the people that are going out to shoplift, right? And one day I saw one of them walk past me with a trolley and two TVs in there, like brand new TVs. I'm thinking, and he's walking it to the drug dealer's house to try and exchange in for drugs. I mean, I don't know who I feel. You know, they've obviously just stolen them, and it's not making an assumption because you know, when this is daily, whenever I was on the cricket field bowling, doing bowls, sorry, you see the same characters walking, and they're really, really nice people, and they will say you anything, you know, do you want anything today, and all this sort of stuff. They'll always ask you and all this sort of stuff, right? So you know, if you were that way inclined, ask them for a shopping list. They will go and get it to earn some money. And I said to them one day, they come up with a bag of goods. I can't remember what it was. It was makeup, yeah. And I said, and they were offering to sell it. And I said, how much is that worth in that bag, just out of interest? And they said about 400 quid. And I said, how much are you selling it for? They said, if you give me 100. And I started messing around with them. And they went as low as 45 quid. I said, listen, I can't buy it. I said, but I just asking you what you do. And he said, this is what we do every day. You know, we basically, they've got like a group of them, and they will just go out shoplifting, get their drugs, and then do it again. I mean, I saw one day in the high street, police officers in a police car. Actually, saying that, funny, Phil, you should say that. They don't get out of their car yet. They went on the loudspeaker radio, following these known shoplifters in their car, and they're just, slowly driving behind them. And I'm thinking, this is surreal. You know, I mean, I don't know how you help people who are heavily invested in drugs. I don't know how you do it. But if you know the same people that are doing the same thing every single day to the local community, how would you resolve that, Phil?
A good question, because I have a similar situation here where I live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, a guy died and left his nice detached house to his son. He's a complete bastard, druggy dealing bastard, and he's quite happily, doing drug deals from his house. And his neighbours have, got cameras on him all the time. They're reporting him all the time. People rocking up to his front door on these electric bikes and stuff like that, And all right, they can arrest him, but I mean, they arrest him, and then a couple of hours later, he's back home and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I've even researched it to the fact that if the police think that his house is being paid for by the proceeds of drugs, then they can actually kick him out, virtually compulsory purchase it, as it were.
Oh, yeah, they can do that. Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah.
But there's not an awful lot they can do. They have to. I mean, they'll go down a long road before they actually get to that. Which will drive the neighbours crackers, I would think.
Yeah. We talk about transporting drugs, in tankers. I told you, Ian, that just by coincidence, I watched a true crime program in America. That's exactly what they were doing. The other thing as well, I was speaking to a local police officer recently. Deliveroo is now basically the biggest service for transporting drugs as well now.
Yeah, it pops up all the time, doesn't it? Places where they hide drugs. There was a one not too far from here where there was hiding them in sorbets, coming over on refrigerated vehicles in sorbets. It's all sorts of places. But just finishing off, coming back to what Phil said about funds being stripped from the police, where really funds should be going to the police. What do you make of this one where, and we've all seen it because it's popping up on my reels all the time. I read one this morning where we had the old, say, Victorian police stations, and they were closed down. Then we've got these state-of-the-art ones that's been built, say, from the 80s onwards. And one here in Newark is a lovely building. I don't think it's that old. But then they've been closing them down. In fact, they was looking to close down Newark police station. Yet the town is growing all the time. There's new houses going up and the population's rising. What is that all about?
Yeah, it makes no sense, does it?
No.
It's so not fair, right? Because, our taxes are going up. We're paying all this money, even collecting bins, it's a struggle nowadays. It's not right. It's not right. The other thing as well, if you think about it, and this is a massive oxymoron, is the amount of protests we have and the amount of policing around protests. I mean, I can't. I mean, I'll be honest, Phil. Going back to, so I was born in 1980. So by the age of 10, I'd probably been a bit like know about this sort of stuff. I can't remember between the age of 10 and 20 protests like we see now of that scale.
No, I mean, there were protests. I mean, there was, a jobs march from Jarrow, wasn't there, at one time?
I know,
down to London.
I know the Iraq War was a big one.
Poll tax, that was another one.
Yeah, Margaret Thatcher. Yeah, I remember that one. I can't remember to the scale that we've got now. We've got
No,
such proper unrest, haven't we? And
but society's messed up, isn't it? It's completely messed up. We've got, you've got Joe Public with his phone and his camera. You've got the police, when you can find one, turning his body camera off.
yeah,
It's all back to front, flipped, isn't it? You've got people who will stand back and watch guys empty stuff out of a store into a bag and then walk out calmly, like, it's like nothing's happened. Security standing there watching him because he daren't do anything, to stop them. It's just completely flipped on its head.
totally skewed. I think on its premise, I think shoplifting is a massive issue in terms of how it affects your society.
Well, now you check yourself out, don't you? If I wanted to work for Sainsbury's, I wouldn't get paid for it. But when I get my shop, I have to check it out myself, or check it while I'm walking around. It's crazy, isn't it? It's asking to be ripped off, isn't it?